meeting of the Rules, Election, and Intergovernmental Relations Committee. Today is Wednesday, October 14th. We'll be taking public comment prior to the discussion of today's meeting. So, Mr. Clerk, can you go ahead and call the roll?
Yes, Councilmember Martinez.
Present.
Councilmember Harris-Dawson.
Here.
And Councilmember Wesson. Councilmember Wesson is absent, so we have 2 members and a quorum.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please explain our speaking rules to the members of the public.
Sure. So to members of the public, when you're calling in and it's your turn, please state which of the agenda items you'd like to speak on. You have 1 minute per item to speak, up to 2 minutes total. Because this is a special meeting, there's no general public comment. We're limited to the items on the agenda. When speaking on the agenda items, you need to be on topic. Our goal is to get through as many speakers as we can. And if we can't tell whether you're on topic or if you're clearly off, we're going to give you a brief warning. If you don't immediately get clearly on topic or again stray off topic, the president will cut you off and you'll forfeit the rest of your speaking time, and we'll move on to the next speaker. We're going to take 20 minutes total of public comment. Finally, as you may know, we're moving all the people that want to speak into the meeting muted at once. When you hear somebody identify you, please press *6 right away to unmute yourself and then tell us which items you want to speak on. We'll then tell you how many minutes you have and you can start up. Because there's a slight time delay between the live meeting and the broadcast, please be listening on your phone so that when you hear us identify you, you can quickly press *6. We don't want you to lose your turn. And then turn down the volume on any other devices you have on to avoid feedback. So those are the speaking rules, and I believe the clerk is going to read out the call-in numbers briefly, even though they're on the agenda, just so everybody has them.
Yes, members of the public who would like to offer public comment on the items listed on the agenda should call 1-669-254-5252 and use meeting ID number 161-292-7334. And I'll repeat that. That's 161-292-7434. And then press pound. Press pound again when prompted for the participant ID. When admitted into the meeting, press *9 to request to speak.
All right, thank you. Let's go ahead and take the first speaker.
Caller ending in 1403. Please press *6 to unmute yourself. Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
It's Mommy's kid. I'm here, Mommy. All items.
You have 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, you fucking niggers. And Mr. Harris-Dawson. Now, getting to the agenda. No, number 1, fuck redistricting. I like my district the way it is. To the left of me, I have my mommy. And to the right of me, I have Councilman Paul Koretz. What 2 better council members could I have? Let's keep it together. Now we have vote by mail. I love vote by mail. More voter fraud. That's what we need. That way, Nuri can become mayor and Donald Trump can get another 4 years. So let's all go for more vote by mail. I love mail fraud. I love mail fraud. That's what Mr. Pierce says every morning when he stretches. I love mail fraud. I love mail fraud. So everybody loves vote by mail fraud. Now we get to primary nominating election. Well, I mean, I'm mentally retarded, so I have to skip that item. Number 4, the military. What the fuck are we talking about these fucking funds on number 4? We all know when you're in the military, you have to do a lot of fucking. You gotta fuck a lot of people. Yeah, that's the trouble. When he was in the hot tub with the mayor, when he was in the Navy, you gotta fuck whatever it is. So if it's a guy, you gotta fuck the guy. If it's fuck stuff. So everybody in the military is
thank you. Let's move on to the next speaker.
Caller ending in 1715, please press star 6 to unmute yourself. Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on. Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on. Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on. Caller ending in 4048. Please press star 6 to unmute yourself. Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Hi, good afternoon. I'd like to speak on item 1. My name is
Go ahead, you
Kiana. I'm
have
the
1
program
minute.
manager with California Common Cause. Common Cause has driven independent redistricting on the state and local level in California, putting residents in the driver's seat to create independent redistricting processes that provide for fair representation and inspire public faith in local government. Because of a lack of guardrails in 2011, the last redistricting process in LA City was driven by backroom deals, little transparency, deprioritizing community members' needs, and putting elected officials' needs at the forefront. This goes against our key values and principles in the redistricting process that other jurisdictions have committed to. Jurisdictions with independent commissions, Long Beach, Sacramento, San Diego, and the city of LA is falling behind while other cities are leading the way on this issue. Common Cause and our partners submitted a list of common sense recommendations for LA City Council to bring transparency and independence to the redistricting process. The recent action by City Council begins to improve this process, but the city needs to take them further. We'd like to
Thank you,
urge a
caller.
support on banning.
Next caller.
Caller ending in 4208, please press star 6 to unmute yourself. Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
This is Rob Kwan. I'd like to speak on items 1 and 3.
Okay, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead.
For item 3, I just think it's worth noting that Councilmember Bonin requested the registrar actually appear to take questions from the council members within 30 days. And obviously, we don't have Dean Logan here, and we're not in front of the full council, and we're about 6 months past that 30-day mark. I think it undermines the value of this hearing because the whole purpose was to actually look at our previous election in March and see what we could do better. And yeah, there was all this helpful information here, but there's a lot of value in having that conversation with the council and with the registrar and having that public and having that right after it happened. There's really little you could do if you did identify problems right now. I think it's also worth noting that it doesn't address the Municipal Reform Commission's pledge to actually ensure that we're working hand in hand with the county and a partnership and actually stepping up to do a number of things that they recommended that we're not doing. And I don't see why we're not using city property and advertising space to promote the early vote period as that commission recommended. With redistricting, this has been marred by a secretive process. There were 3 essential documents on the appointment process and deadline that were held from the public despite repeated requests made to the council president's office to ensure that we had a public process and asking for those specific details. If we can't trust you to disclose that kind of basic information, we can't expect you to comply with disclosure of ex parte communications. There were doubts for you to be able to comply with an honor system there, given how you comply with Public Records Act, but they've been fully validated by this council's actions in this last month or so. Disclosure won't work because we're just going to get summaries. You'll be reporting with the next meeting. It only applies to the commissioner, not the elected official, which is really cute. I think that's really, really cute what you did there. I think it's worth noting that commissioners could be removed for providing too much disclosure in their ex parte communications disclosures, and they could actually be removed by.
Caller with the last 4 digits, 7306, press star 6 to unmute yourself. Caller with the last 4 digits, 7306, press star 6 to unmute yourself. Caller with the last four digits, 7306. Press star 6 to unmute yourself. Caller with the last four digits, 5525. Press star 6 to unmute yourself. Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Maggie Murray. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters, and Mitch O'Farrell is my council member. I want to speak today on agenda number 1.
You have 1 minute. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I am calling today to remind the council that your constituents are watching this process. Healthy democracy relies on districts that equitably represent its citizens, and I thank the City Council for making a good faith effort to create a process that is more independent and accessible to gain the trust of the public. I'd really like to emphasize the importance today of transparency, particularly when it comes to removing commissioners. A public statement should always be given if a commissioner is removed, and council members should only remove commissioners for a just cause. So, for example, if a council member disagrees with the commissioners or just wants to remove them on a whim, those are not just causes. This should be established procedure so that commissioners can confidently make decisions that benefit the public, even if it may go against the wishes of the official who appointed them. If removal does not take place, there must be a required submission of a written document. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Caller with the last four digits, 2616. Press star 6 to unmute yourself. Caller with the last four digits, 2616. Press star 6 to unmute yourself. Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Sure. It's Eric Previn, and I'll give a little comment about the redistricting.
Why don't you tell me what items you want to speak on, Mr. Previn?
The redistricting item number 1.
Okay, you have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Okay, so I appreciate what we're trying to do here. This is the process by which the redistricting that so much of the graft, corruption, and greed connected to the FBI problems with Jose Huizar and Mitchell Englander, and really at the fountainhead of it is Herb Weston, because he was the one who diligently and effectively carved the district so many years ago, and he did so to the fury of Bernard Parks and his other rivals at the time. And so this is to build in some catch-alls, and I appreciate the effort to try to stop the cronyism. Obviously, ex parte conversations are absurd, but are we ever going to be able to do battle against wives and cronyism? It's so hard because the only people who know about this are the people who will benefit. And the way it works, so sad, CD4, CD2, they scramble the boundaries so people...
Thank you, Mr. Previn. Let's move on to the next caller.
Caller with the last four digits, 1403. Press star 6 to unmute yourself. Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Cronyism. Obviously, ex parte conversations are absurd, but are we ever going to be able
Speaker,
to do
can
battle
you turn
against
down the volume on your device? We're getting feedback. I'm just listening on the
so
phone.
hard because the only people who know about it
Oh,
are the people
we're getting a
who-
mess here.
The way it works, so sad.
I think we're going to have to move to the next speaker.
They scramble.
Caller ending in 1411. Press star 6 to unmute yourself. Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
My name is Taurine Spittle, speaking on item number 1.
Okay, go ahead, speaker. You have 1 minute.
Okay. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters, and David Ryu is my council member. Recent revelations of corruption in city government have made it clear that things cannot continue as they have in the past. Changing the way redistricting is done is a good first step, so thank you for your efforts to make it fairer. However, certain modifications could serve the city even better. The City Council has proposed a requirement that commissioners disclose any ex parte communications with elected officials or staff. Prohibiting ex parte communications, as the state of California does, ensures that commissioners are not being influenced by back-channel conversations, and I urge you to take that approach. If the city decides to stick with disclosure, that disclosure should be made public immediately after the conversation takes place, and specific reporting guidelines should be included. We cannot simply rely on an honor system. Finally, it is in the interest of real transparency to extend disclosure to all ex parte communications between commissioners and anyone, not just elected officials and their staff. Thank you.
Caller ending in 7306, press star 6 to unmute yourself. Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Hi, I'm Carolina Goodman. I am speaking for the League of Women Voters of Los Angeles on item number 1.
Go ahead, you have 1 minute.
City Council has demonstrated awareness of the need for an independent, transparent, and accessible redistricting process. Here are 3 easy but significant additional changes we hope you will implement. Enormous effort is unnecessary because the state has a successful model that the city can use. Number 1, like California, ban all ex parte communication, which would be much more simple than having to develop rules and procedures for disclosure. 2, when selecting commissioners, the public requires more information than what's provided in a resume. Demographic information and possible conflict of interest are important things for us to know. 3, a commissioner should not be dismissed without cause. The elected official must publicly state the reason for the dismissal. Creating fair district maps will help restore the trust of Angelenos. Thank you.
Caller ending in 4048, press star 6 to unmute yourself. Caller ending in 4048, press star 6 to unmute yourself.
Hi. Yes, I support fair redistricting and Common Cause's efforts to work towards that, to ban all ex parte communications.
Please state what items you'd like to speak on.
And enough time for commission to create maps with census data.
Thank you, caller.
Caller ending in 1403, press star 6 to unmute yourself.
Hi. Yes, I support fair redistricting and Common Cause's efforts to work towards that, to ban all ex parte communications. What items you'd like to
Caller, can you turn down your device on the other end? And we're hearing a lot of feedback. Caller, can you hear me?
Please state your name and the items you'd like to speak on. Caller ending in 2616, press star 6 to unmute yourself. Caller ending in 2616, press star 6 to unmute yourself. Caller ending in 2616, press star 6 to unmute yourself. Caller ending in 2636, press star 6 to unmute yourself. Please state your name and the items you'd like to speak on.
My name is Joe Friedman, and I'd like to speak on item number 1.
You have 1 minute. Go ahead.
I'm a member of the League of Women Voters, and Paul Kerkorian is my council member. Thank you for trying to make the redistricting process more fair than it was 10 years ago. I want to emphasize why it's important that the commission represent the diversity of LA. Beyond a resume, we need other relevant background information as per the City Council August 11th Amendment. We, the voters, require any information about possible conflicts of interest. Do appointees have relationships with City Council members? We have a handy form that you have already received, and we would like you to consider using it and making the information publicly available. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, that concludes public comment for our meeting this afternoon, so we're going to go ahead and close public comment. Let's go ahead and take items 4 through 10 on consent unless anyone has any comments or questions.
Madam Chair, for the record, item numbers 4 through 10 have reports submitted by the CLA's office.
Thank you. So without objection, let's go ahead and take items 4 through 10 on approval. Let's move on to item number 1. Can you please read that into the record?
Yes, item number 1 are reports from the City Attorney and Chief Legislative Analyst and an ordinance relative to redistricting commission startup support and adding an ex parte communication disclosure requirement for redistricting commission members and to make technical amendments and adjustments to commission deadlines.
Okay, thank you. So in August, I introduced an amending motion to the redistricting report, making a series of changes to the redistricting process. One of those changes was an instruction to the City Attorney's Office to prepare an ordinance that would require commissioners to disclose ex parte communications between a commissioner and an elected official or their staff. Before us, we have an ordinance that does that. The ordinance would require a commissioner to disclose the following: a time and date of the communication, the identity of the people participating, and a summary of the content. This would be disclosed at the next commission meeting. In addition to this change, we also require that all elected officials provide resume and a background information on their appointees. Commissioners already are required to file a Form 700 to disclose their personal financial interest. In addition to that, they are now also required to complete an ethics training before they take office. We are also requested that the Redistricting Commission do the following: provide more than 72-hour notice for their meetings, that when possible, they conduct weekend public meetings to encourage more participation. And lastly, we requested that they avoid hiring current or former city staff that has been out of the city service for under a year. The commissions, once they are convened, will establish their policies and procedures. However, I just wanted to make sure that the council made these changes now prior to the commissioners taking office so that we can have a more fair and transparent redistricting process from the very beginning. So with that, we've invited Mr. Harit Travendi from the City Attorney's Office to answer any questions about the ordinance, and also Mr. John Wilcom from the CLA's office to answer any questions about the report. Mr. Harris-Dawson, do you have any questions?
Just one. Thank you, Madam Chair. On the reporting for communications with elected officials, is that elected officials of any jurisdiction of government in the U.S., in the city, in the county, in the state? I guess, what would be the basis of that if it's beyond the city?
Mr. City Attorney?
Yes, thank you, Council Member. It is applying to communications with elected city officers and members of elected city officers' staff. There's also a requirement on the LAUSD Redistricting Commission, and that would apply to communications with elected city officers and board members. The point would be to address the appointing authorities and communications with appointing authorities or their staff.
And then the reports that are filed, those reports become public immediately, or do they stay in a file with the committee? How does that, how do you foresee that working?
So the ordinance itself requires that commissioners make the disclosures at the next commission meeting after the communication. The understanding would be that would be in public during the meeting. But it also lets the commission to set implementing procedures as to how they receive that information, whether it's through a form or at a particular agenda item.
Got it. Thank you. That concludes my questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Harris-Dawson. I have a few questions. So what's the next process in the redistricting process? What are the next steps?
John Wickham with the CLA's office. We will be coordinating the first meeting with the commission, both commissions, sometime in November. We'll be waiting until the ex parte ordinance has taken effect. We also need to make sure that the commissioners receive their ethics training. So the next step, once that is done, is for the commission to hold their first meeting to begin the organization. They will select their leadership and set their meeting schedules. And then they will also take actions to hire an executive director and their own staff. Our intention is to help them hire their own staff, their own executive directors as expeditiously as possible so that they will have full control over their agendas, their meetings, and be able to move their work forward as they see fit.
So after all this is done, Mr. Wilkamp, do you anticipate the first meeting taking place sometime in November?
That's our expectation, yes.
Okay. And so what are we doing to prepare for a virtual redistricting process? Because I don't see how we're going to meet in person anytime soon.
Yes, your CLA and the city attorney's office have been trying to figure out the details of holding those kinds of virtual meetings. It does have its own challenges because there are procedures that need to be followed when holding public meetings, and we need to make sure that the commissioners have all of the information available necessary to do that. We are also working to set up a web page, which will be a public place that the public will be able to access information on redistricting. It will be a standalone web page of its own. And so all of the documentation related to redistricting will be available there, agendas, everything associated with redistricting for both the City Council and the LAUSD will be available on that website.
Okay, my final question is, so last month I read that the governor had signed into law SB 970. And so how does that change our redistricting timeline?
The CLA's office is preparing a report with that information. It was very helpful in establishing the actual deadlines for finalizing the City Council and LAUSD district boundaries. We will have a report out in the next week or so that details those dates. What it does most effectively is provide an additional 2 months for the commission and the City Council to complete their review. The county has informed us that the deadline to submit final plans has been moved from October 6th to December 8th, I believe it is. And so that will give all of us more time to do the full review necessary, obtain the community input that's needed, and get that information developed in a timely manner.
Yeah, so essentially we're getting 2 extra months.
We're getting 2 extra months.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Those are all my questions. If there are any other questions or comments, I will move to approve the recommendation from the CLA's report and adopt the ordinance. Is there any objection?
No objection.
All right, seeing none, that is the order. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for being in our meeting. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Let's move on to items number 2 and 3. Can you please read those into the record, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, items 2 and 3 are both city clerk reports. Item number 2 is relative to accessing access to casting vote-by-mail ballots in the November 3rd general election. And item number 3 is relative to the 2020 primary nominating election and voting solutions for all people, or the VSAP system.
All right, thank you. So as of today, we're 20 days away from Election Day. During the primary in March, we heard about long lines and equipment problems, and I just want to make sure that we're prepared for November. I know that the primary responsibility lies on the county, but I want to make sure that the city's doing everything it can to make voting easy and accessible for folks. So I just want to make sure that we've done everything we can to prepare. But specifically, given the complications with COVID has presented on us, I just want to make sure that we're talking through some of these issues. I have several questions about the primary election that occurred in March. But before I get into my questions, why don't we go ahead and invite Holly Wilcock, our city clerk, into our meeting so she can provide a brief overview on the report and answer any questions. Holly, are you there?
Good afternoon, Council President. Yes, I'm here. Holly Walcott, City Clerk for the City of Los Angeles. Sorry, I was having a little bit of technical difficulty. So confirming we're now working on item 3?
No, we're taking item 2 and 3 together.
2 and 3 together.
All right.
Okay. So starting with item number 2 on the regarding the ballot, the vote by mail. As you all may know, that the Secretary of State did mail all vote by mail, all registered voters a vote by mail ballot, and all individuals that are registered by October 17th. So October 17th is the deadline for you to receive a ballot by mail. So if you're not registered, you should be by October 17th in order to receive your ballot by the mail. The Los Angeles Library and the Los Angeles Rec and Parks had been installing in September the ballot drop-off boxes. There are 137 of them in the city of Los Angeles, which is roughly double the number that there were in March. There's approximately double the number also in the county-wide. So again, most of them were installed by street services, and a large portion by the libraries, and then finally there's some that were installed by the registrar recorder. To find the location nearest you, you can go to lavote.net, and also you should have received in the mail some information, but if you have not, you can call our office, LA City Clerk, or you can go to lavote.net and it will have all the information on the drop-off locations. You can also mail in your ballot by the U.S. Postal Service, as long as it is postmarked by Election Day and received within 17 days after the election. Your ballot will be processed and counted. Now, the Secretary of State also instituted this year ballot tracking. So there's a ballot you can go on to, again, lavote.net, and it will hook you back up to the Secretary of State site that will allow you to track where your ballot is. So you'll know that it's received by the county register recorder. You'll know that if it's been processed and ready to be counted. So that's pretty much the vote by mail report, item number 2. Regarding the March 3rd primary, as you stated, Council President, there were some issues regarding that election, primarily because it was a brand new system and a brand new model. The county went to a vote center model, and this was the first year that the city had completely consolidated with the county. And instead of having a local precinct model, they went to vote centers where you could vote at any location throughout the county. Now, despite endless efforts to try and get the word out, I still think most people voted at the last minute and they waited until the last day, because that is, people have a tendency to follow the behavior that they had in the past. And so what that created was a problem at the voting centers where they didn't have the bandwidth for the electronic poll books to update fast enough to process the voters fast enough. So this created long lines and confusion. So going into November, and then also added the extensive COVID crisis, that is why all registered voters have received a vote by mail ballot to give everybody the opportunity to vote and early and to get their ballots in. But there will still be the vote centers opening starting. There will be some that are open 10 days in front of the election, but all of them will be opened 4 days in front. And again, it's the same lavote.net to find the vote center closest to you. You can still vote in person. There have revamped what the LA Register Recorder has revamped how they've administered this election. Dean Logan is expected to be in council. Can't remember if it was Tuesday or Wednesday. I think it's the 20th. To answer your questions directly, but they did issue a report that is linked in ours, and they answered extensive questions in front of the LA County Board of Supervisors, who also had the same concerns that you all have. to ensure that all voters can vote safely and have access in March. And I think, again, one of the greatest things is to have additional vote boxes and to extend the when you have to have your ballot in. I mean, you have to have it postmarked by Election Day, but you have 17 days by which for it to reach the registrar recorder, and then, of course, everybody receiving a vote by mail ballot. So I also have Jeannie Pack here with me. We'll try and answer any questions you have. If we don't have the answers, we'll either get them to you or Dean will be here next week.
Yeah, he's scheduled to be here on Tuesday in council, Holly. Mr. Harris Dawson, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you so much for the report, Ms. Walcott.
So, Holly, what role would the city clerk's office have in the November election? I know that in March, you provided staff to help with that election. Are we doing the same thing to help the county? And is any training taking place if that happens?
Well, we're doing several things. One, the city clerk staff is training to be part of a call center. So we'll be the rollover call center, which we're doing virtually. And the training has taken place last week. We are still getting our feet wet with that process. So my staff is primarily working on that. We also are helping signing up the disaster service workers to actually provide additional staff to the harder to staff voting centers. So that's for the city departments that have been identified by the personnel department as for that program. So we're in that process. And then we will also, as a city clerk, have roving staff on the ground that are able to respond to locations that, similar to what happened in March, if the county asked us to respond somewhere, we will have some staff available to do that.
Okay, so and during the primary, I know we had issues with equipment delivery, the setup, inadequate training. What are we doing to make sure that this doesn't happen again and it's not the case in November? Do you know?
Well, they switched how they coordinated that event. The county centralized their coordination, which I think it was a better model for them all to know who was doing what. So we have not been dispatched this time to help deliver equipment. So they had a more centralized coordination. I think it's part of growing pains is you learn each time. So as far as we know, we don't as of right now don't know of any issues on the delivery of equipment. We are still working with ITA and Rec and Parks regarding connectivity to the World Wide Web and secure access to the wide area network. That's for the electronic poll book. That's the only part of the election that is utilizes the internet is the electronic poll book. Everything else is a closed system.
Wow. So my other question is, how are we promoting our locations of our voting centers and some of these drop boxes in the city? Because I know that the county register has a list on their website. Are we doing the same thing in terms of listing all the drop box locations and our voting centers? Do we have that all listed and spelled out on our city website?
We don't yet. We just received the final list yesterday, and I forwarded it, or I had staff forward it to each council office yesterday of which ones are in your district. But by tomorrow, we'll make sure that we have it up on our website, the city clerk's website. And if there's a more centralized location on the city's webpage that you'd like it on, we'll make sure that it's linked there. But again, we just received it yesterday, but we'll make sure that it goes up.
Yeah, that was troubling.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, I send my staff out to physically go look for the boxes and identify the voting centers so that we can put something on our social media. And I think we contacted your office last week to make that list available to us. So thank you. I think we should do that get them to members as soon as possible. We all have social media access. There's no reason we can't start promoting this. But we should also get it on our own website, and just so that we can better direct folks of where to drop off their ballot, if not at a voting center, at a drop-off location. So we need to do that as soon as possible.
Definitely. My outreach team has continued to work through the pandemic. Much of our outreach, of course, had to switch to remote as opposed to our usual in person. But we did begin our outreach on vote boxes. I know I was doing the social media thing on Friday, but we'll continue to make sure that that information gets out there.
Appreciate it. Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and move to note and file this item. There's no objection. That will be the order. And that concludes our meeting, right, Mr. City Clerk? There are no other agenda items
Correct.
to take up
Desk
today?
is clear.
So this committee is adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you, Holly. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Dawson. Bye-bye.